Hello y'all! Today we're going to be figuring out how to do your final exam video. So first let's start with what to do and where to do it. So you need to record yourself, and I want you to do a screen capture so that I can see you doing your work, and I want to have your picture in the screen as well, similar to what I do or what you're looking at right now. So to do that, you want to go to the final exam video upload here, and you need to click into this folder. Now, I already have a student that uploaded, and so I'm not going to open this just so I can keep that private for them. But you need to click into this folder, and then you'll create within here so that the file that you make or the video that you record will go into this location so I can grade it. If you've never done this before, there are some resources and tips over here, and it will help you to know how to record in Panopto. And then if for some reason you have a preferred recording method and you understand how to do that, that's fine. You can also upload to Panopto. So there are some suggestions here. In the weekly to-do list right now, this is set as just, it's just the document. I'm going to change that because you need to upload your PDF. And so it will have this document, but also it will have a location for you to upload the knitted document when you're all done. So that's the idea. You need to make a video. You'll do it in Panopto and do a screen share, and then you will ultimately knit. And I want that knitted document uploaded so I can check your code. Okay, now here's what I would do if I were doing a video. All right. I have in the shared project, so this is before, this is like the legwork. In the shared projects, I have in Bergacre, in my 215, there's a final exam video. So before you start recording, I would suggest that you copy that into your private folder. And I would suggest that once you know your question, that you open that project that you did. So in your folder, and copy that code and take out certain chunks of it. That's the legwork I would do before I even start recording. So you can see I'm prepped and ready to go. I've got my generic code, and then I've got what my question is. So what is the average sleep for GVSU students, and my method. So when I start recording, I'm going to ask the question and I'm going to explain what my method is, and then I'm going to start doing the thread. I did that in the beginning or before I started recording because it'll save me some time, and it's not necessary for you to type all that out or type this out during the recording. I just want it to be interactive, and so I have most of my code up here and I know what I'm going to say, and then I have some of my work done down here so that I can just zoom through this. So now this is how I would start my recording. So if I were you, this is what it would look like for me. So today we're going to be looking at what is the average amount of sleep that GVSU students get. So that's what I'm going to be answering. I am going to be using a confidence interval for one population mean because I only have one population. I'm not comparing groups. And I know it's a mean because sleep is a quantitative variable. And so in order for me to get a confidence interval, I would have to use this particular method. Now today we are going to be running a fair amount of code. We're going to start with this chunk, which really only will affect when we knit. As an aside, I would have already had this done. And then I would run the library because we need this. And then I would run my data. All of that has to happen before you run the code down here. Otherwise, when you ask for something from GVSU, our program will not know what that is. Now, when we do this, we are actually coding in these code chunks, which are gray, and we'll be doing the thread method in this portion, which is white, which is essentially a word processor. So I am at Fred, the F in Fred, and I start with my population, so that's going to be all GVSU students. Now, the next part of Fred is the sample, so I need to know the sample size. Now, because we're doing sleep, and I have GVSU as my data, I'm going to put GVSU in here, and then I know that in here I need sleep. Now, I knew it was in all caps, but if you need to, you can, after you read in the data, you can use this arrow to see what your variables are. I know that it's in all caps, so that's how I'm going to type it there. Now I'm just going to start by running the favstats code because I want to know the sample size. To run that, you can either do Control-Enter or you can do run and do run selected lines up there. So now that I know I have 2,264, I can continue in my thread. So I'm going to say 2,264 GVSU students, and then my variable is going to be sleep, and my parameter of interest, which I can't use the symbol, so I'm going to write it out as mu, is mean hours of sleep per night for GVSU students. So remember, when you define a parameter, that you have to always start with mean if you have a mu, and then you state your variable, which here is hours of sleep per night, and then you state it for your population, and here we knew it was GVSU students. So that's all of my F and Fred. Now for the R, I just need to review my conditions. So remember that reviewing conditions requires that you have a fairly symmetric data set and that you don't have any outliers. So we have to actually visualize this. So I'm going to create a histogram. And remember, histogram is the appropriate method because we have quantitative data. Now you'll notice that I have some breaks there. I'm not going to use that code quite yet because I want to see how it starts. So it looks like my data ranges from about 1 to about 13, and I don't like the separation in these bars, so I'm going to change my breaks there. So I already had that code written out, but essentially that breaks code helps you to be able to make the graph look a little bit better. So sometimes you would want to add it afterwards, like I'm doing, so that you can get a nicer histogram, but you can't always do that unless you've seen the initial bad ones, if that makes sense. So you can see that my distribution is fairly symmetric and I don't have huge outliers. So I'm going to say my distribution is symmetric with no outliers that are in line with sample size. So I do have some up here, but we have a 2,000 size data set, and so I'm okay with that little guy. All right, so because my conditions have been met, I can do the executing of the calculation, which is this t-test code. So again, I'm going to move my variable we're working with, which is sleep, into that. And you'll notice that I made a little mistake there. I accidentally deleted that equal sign. So I'm going to need to put that back in because it should look like data equals. And then we have a comma. And then my confidence level, I'm going to do a 95%. Remember, or not remember, those have to be in decimal value. And so when I run that code, I get a 95% confidence interval. You can see that here. And so I'm just going to copy that. I use that Control-C, and I can put that right here. Isn't that fancy? You could have a different confidence level, and you would just change that in this location. The variable that you want to have a confidence interval for comes after the tilde. So a different variable here from this data set would create its own confidence interval. So after I have that confidence interval, now I can draw my conclusions. So we always start with how confident we are. Here we're 95% confident. And then we actually always want to restate our parameter, and that's part of the reason we write it. So I'm just going to show you that you can copy that and then add it into your conclusion. So we are 95% confident the mean hours of sleep per night for GVSU students is between, and then again, I am going to show you that this is exactly what we need. So I'm going to say is between, and I put in my 2, and I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller so it's a little easier to read. So I just take out some decimals. Is between our confidence interval of 6.93 and 7.03 hours per night. That's it. Happy coding. So that's how I would do it. It's not that long, and I'm just trying to dialogue while I'm working and teach while I'm working and having my face on the screen. So if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, at this point in the video, you would have knitted, and that probably should be part of your video actually, and then you upload that knitted document. Okay, and I want to make sure that I see your code. So make sure that you don't change any of those parts of the code that I have already written. Just add to that code. And then you see that my Fred method comes in at the end of my PDF document, which is exactly what I want. So this is how it should look. This is what you would upload, but that would be the video. Okay, I hope that it goes well for you. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have fun.